Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. We are very excited to have you all and the panelists of seasoned bookkeeping and business automation experts join us for today's session. While we wait for everyone to trickle in, I'd love to hear from today's audience. So please feel free to share where in the world you're joining us from in the chat. Today, we are joined by our panelists. They are Eilis McCann from Method. She is the communications digital manager. Eilis, hi. And
hey,
we are sorry.
Thanks so much for having us. Really excited to get into good content with all of you guys.
Yeah, we also are joined by Will Farnell, the founder of Farnell, Clarke, and co-founder of App Advisory Plus. He's also the author of The Digital Firm and soon-to-be published second book, The Human Firm. He's an expert in everything firm culture, from accounting firm growth to accounting technology and digital change. So welcome, Will. It's a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, thank you.
And last but certainly not least, I'd like to welcome Alex Keselman, product expert and solutions engineer at ApprovalMax with over 7 years of experience in technology-driven solutions. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Likewise. Before we jump into our webinar session, I would like to remind our audience that you will be receiving an email with a recording of the session and the slides later on this week. There will also be a Q&A portion at the end of the session, but feel free to drop your questions in the chat as they come up. I know that I tend to forget things if I don't jot them down. We will get to those. We'll get around to those in the end. And yeah, now let's kick things off with my first question, which is actually for our audience. I'm going to launch a poll now. And I am curious, how many of your processes are automated at the moment? Would you say it's between 0 to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75, or 76 to 100? I'll give everyone a few seconds to get their answers in before we jump to the next poll. All right. See the answers coming in. Pretty split. So let's share it with everyone now. So it looks like there's a pretty even split between 0 to 25 and 26 to 50%. So almost halfway there. And 25% of you said they're in between the 51-75% threshold, which is nice to see. There's always room for improvement. I have another question for the audience, and that is, where do you typically look for advice on apps? Do you tend to Google it? Do you tend to go on the QuickBooks Marketplace, apps.com, as you may know it, and look over there? Do you rely on platforms like App Advisory Plus, which has a lot of good insights, or more of a word of mouth? You tend to talk to peers to get those recommendations. And if any other way that is not in the poll, then feel free to tell us in the chat. Again, I will give everyone a few seconds to get their answers in. And okay, let's share our findings. So it looks like the big majority of you tends to look for answers on Google. I do too. Followed by the QuickBooks Marketplace, apps.com. That's a good place to look for it as well. Not so much for App Advisory Plus, but now that's on your radar, hopefully you can start getting some insights from there. Word of mouth and other. I don't see anything in the chat yet, but if you'd like to share where you're finding those insights, then please do. Okay. Closing the poll. And now let's kick things off with my first question for the panelists. What are some approaches to choosing apps for QuickBooks Online that you would recommend? Will, would you kick it off for us?
Absolutely, thanks, Philippa. So I think first thing is that we see too often that people kind of jump in within a category of apps without actually really thinking about like what's the objective, what is it we're trying to achieve. So I think we should always start with like what's the problem we're trying to solve here, and actually is technology always the right solution? In a lot of cases it is, but sometimes I hate to say it when we've got tech companies on the call here, but sometimes you can overcomplicate. I think I can't remember whether it was Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. One of them said the idea that actually if you lay technology over poor processes, then actually you're just kind of magnifying the inefficiencies in the process. So it's really about understanding what it is you're trying to achieve, and then finding the right tech and being really clear on what are the things that you kind of must have, the things that's nice to have, and the things that actually don't really matter. So it's always start with the outcome for me.
That was a great start. Thank you, Will. Alex, do you have any recommendations?
Sure. Once we've understand what is the actual challenge that we're facing, the next step would be pretty much to start exploring the market. And there is several approaches to that. You can either just Google that, as we've seen from the majority on the poll, or you can just ask maybe some of your colleagues or some of the tech industry leaders and so on. But one of the things here that exploring the market is just one single part of this process. The second thing would be to understand what is the value for your specific business, and actually taking in consideration having a free trial and just making sure that all the different tick boxes that is essential for your business are actually ticked would be an essential part of the whole thing. So once you'll give it a try, and that is a great thing about this cloud accounting, that you have so many apps on the market and you can really play around with all of them. You can ask for the opinion of the experts within the product itself and see if it will fit your needs. Then it will make it much easier for you to implement the right technology at the right time.
Very strong tips. Thank you for that, Alex. Eilis, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, for sure. So just to add on what Will and Alex were kind of saying there, I think once you've kind of identified what challenge you're trying to solve, and you've got that short list of apps that you think are going to solve that challenge, my next step beyond doing the free trial and really putting your heart and soul into that would be to check out what the customer reviews are like. Are businesses similar to yours finding value in the solution? And you want to be looking at things like, are they in the same industry as you? Are they also using the QuickBooks Online integration? Are they the same size? All those kind of things would be my recommendation. I think too, like, you definitely want a strong integration with QuickBooks Online from one of your apps if that is like a central part of your operations and your accountant.
Yeah. On top of that, I would like to add also a very important part of the whole process, and once you have the short list of the apps, check what are the security measurements of all of these apps, what type of protocols they're used, what type of security measurement they have in place, two-factor authentication, single sign-ons, different certifications and things like that, because you're actually working with your financial data and it has to be secured. It has to be stored in a very secure place with the continuous backup. So making sure that the provider, the app provider that you're working with, or you're going to work with, having all of these different security measurements is an essential part of adding these apps into your app stack.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your insights. Let's move on to my next question. What processes should be automated first? And as sort of a follow-up, which ones can wait? Will, what can you tell us about how and when to start automating?
So a lot of the work that I do is helping accounting firms first and foremost. And I'm sure we've got a mix of accounting firms and end user clients on the call today. Certainly when I'm talking to accounting firms and bookkeeping firms about kind of where to start with utilizing technology, it starts with the core financials, particularly when we're looking at what we do for clients. So I talk about that in terms of input, process, and output. So your process bit in the middle is your QuickBooks Online. You've got to have a tool that effectively helps you get the data from clients, or if you're the end user, get your data into QBO. So that's kind of invoice processing tools and things like that. And then the output is like, what are we going to do with the data? So once we've got the data in and we've processed it, turned it into real insight. How do we surface that so we can make decisions? So for me, that's always the start point. If you haven't got that basic, then it kind of isn't worth us talking about the apps that go beyond that. So even when we talk about the stuff that Alex is doing with ApprovalMax and order processing and approvals, if you haven't got the data coming in a timely manner, then there's no value with kind of putting those processes in place. So always start with the core, and then start to think about the easy things. And again, for accountants working with clients, payments and whether that's receivables or payables, it's dead easy. It applies to every client you've got. Every client has to pay and get paid. So focus on these, and then it's about marketing. Really about marketing automation, so CRM and email management and all of those kind of things. So look at the things that are fundamental to what you do in your business, and start to think about the processes, and always start with a blank sheet of paper and think about what the right process is to have, rather than trying to get tech to fit those processes that are outdated. So that's kind of my start point, really.
That's very enlightening. Yeah, you touched on marketing automation or just general automation and CRM. I was wondering, Eilis, do you have any other tips for our audience?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say when it comes to automation, like I would start small and then build up versus trying to automate a full workflow right out the gate, especially if you're new to automation. I think a really important consideration to have when you are starting to apply automation is, where are these bottlenecks occurring and what is going to alleviate them, right? So too often we see key stakeholders being the blocker, and everyone else around them cannot move things forward. So that would be a big, recommendation. And then to build off of what Will was kind of touching on there, a lot of the small businesses that we work with, their processes aren't necessarily like formalized, they're evolving and stuff like that, which is totally fine. But I would try to standardize the workflows a little bit before you even get into the realm of automation or technology, just because otherwise, you're opening the door for kind of error, as well as for like rework to be done on automation if you think, oh, actually, this is a smarter way of doing it, especially if you're scaling. I would just really make sure you're putting the thought into the processes before you start automating. So those are kind of my thoughts, but I'll pass it over to Alex.
Yeah, I think from my side, it will be more of a general advice. I think of myself as an automation maniac, probably because I'm quite a lazy person and I'd like to automate as much as possible in my life. So one of the things that I'm, as a rule of thumb, in what I need to automate first, I'm taking a look on all of the different tasks that I'm doing throughout the week. If there is something that I'm doing on a daily basis and I'm spending more than like 10, 15 minutes of my time doing such things, I would want to automate such things, because all of these manual routine tasks, they're actually quite better done by the machine rather than by the human. It's error prone when you're doing it yourself every day, the same routine task. So if you'll take the whole process that you're having, like from the receiving an invoice or maybe something else, all the way to the payment, and you'll shrink it all, you'll see that there is some bottlenecks. You'll see certain things that you're doing constantly, and perhaps such things you can easily automate, and you will see how much money you'll save, how much time. Well, it's pretty much money equals time in that case. So take a look on your process and just shrink it into different parts and see which things you're doing constantly, repeatedly, and wasting more than 10, 15 minutes a day.
And it's about understanding, I think, as well, why we automate. And that's about being able to focus on the things that really deliver value. So that the saying of kind of automate the mundane is absolutely critical here. If we automate the things that add no value and free our time up to focus on the things that really do add the value, and whether you're an accountant or bookkeeper, and that's about spending more time engaging and talking to your clients, or you're a small business owner and it's about freeing that time up so you can focus on talking to your clients and your customers. That's kind of, it's as much of, we've got how and when here, but actually the why is kind of really important. Why should we automate?
Correct. Yeah. And just like as a simple example, imagine if a customer's writing to you every day exactly the same question, and you will be writing an email over and over again from the beginning, not creating any draft or a template for the same question every day. So it will take 15, 20 minutes of your time just to write an email that you're doing every day. Perhaps it will be much more valuable if you'll just create a template and just shoot it over to your customers straight away. Same goes for any other process here.
Right,
sure.
very sound advice. Eilis, do you have something to add?
Yeah, just one more thought. Like, we're talking a lot about kind of like the hard, financial dollars that people are saving from automation, which, of course is huge, money talks. But I think too, it's important to not overlook some indirect kind of impact. So when you are leveraging automation, to get that mundane work off, your employees' plates, like they're going to be more motivated, they're going to be more satisfied, turnover is going to decrease, and obviously that's super expensive as well. Same for your customer experience, right? So those touch points that Alex was talking about, kind of standardizing, if you want to be delivering the same, excellent level of service to all your clients, then let's take some of the onus off, the employees who maybe have a lot on their plate, et cetera, and make sure each of those kind of interactions are happening in a really seamless kind of.
Yeah, good thoughts. Thank you. And thanks everyone for their answers. So with that, I am wondering, how do you choose between apps that integrate with QuickBooks Online when there's so many out there and it can be quite overwhelming to find the right fit? Will, how about you start things out?
So I always, whenever we start talking about how do you choose apps, the one thing that I always start with is how not to choose apps, and that's what we refer to as crowdsourcing app advice, which is kind of quite dangerous. And what I mean by that is you go onto a Facebook community or whatever and say, hey, I've got a client and they're an e-commerce client and we want an e-commerce solution. What do you recommend? And what you're missing here is actually real clarity around what business is your client in, what's the nature of their e-commerce business, what's important to them, what are they trying to achieve. So it comes back to really understanding what is it you want your technology to do for you. What's the end game? What's the objective? So the first point is actually go through a formal process, and this is where there's a great opportunity for CPAs and accountants and bookkeepers to really help their clients and at the same time develop new service lines to help them understand, well, how do I go about choosing technology? How do I build up a specification that talks about the things that I need, the functionality that I need? Because until you know that, you can't go to market and start researching apps. And I'll touch on kind of what App Advisory Plus is a bit later, but we built App Advisory Plus for this very reason, because we were looking at technology for our clients and thought, well, there's so much choice, and how do we get ApprovalMax to integrate with job management systems and Dext and all of these other things, and it was really hard to get the answers. So what we tried to do is build a platform to help people save the time that we had to spend researching those answers. So the first thing is be really clear on what it is you want your technology to do, because once you understand that, you take what might be a possible 30 products and you might take that down to 5 just by being really clear on some of the functionality that's absolutely mission critical, because if 15 of them don't have that mission critical functionality, then you've got a much smaller list to work with. So that's kind of the start point. I'll let the other guys throw their ideas in and we'll pick up some more.
Yeah, Alex, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, actually, I'm 100% agree on what Will just said. It's a crucial point to start with an objective and just to understand what is your main challenge. Once you have an idea of what you actually would like to automate and what you would like to include into your app stack and your day-to-day business, then you have a short list of things that you want to take a look on. Once we have an objective, then it will be much easier to speak with the actual app providers. You can go in the marketplace, search for the reviews, see what type of reviews our actual customers are saying about the product, then speak with the sales guys or with the technical guys from the team of that specific app provider, take a look on the demos, have a one-on-one meeting, give it a try, because most of the providers, some of them give you a free trial, some don't. Some allows you to sort of purchase subscription first and then give it a try, which is, from my point of view, not the great approach, because you probably would like to make sure to take a look on first. Perhaps even the design of the product will just take away from that product. Maybe you'll throw away from the look of it. You won't be able to work with that. Or maybe from the other hand, some of the great looking product just won't tick all the boxes that you need. So it's a matter of understanding what's your objective, and once we have that, then speak with the actual app providers and understand if the app can tick all the boxes from the checklist that you have.
Thank you, Eilis. Great thoughts there. If there are no lingering thoughts on this one, I'll go over to our next question. Which apps help not just accountants, but small businesses as well? I know, Will, you have some insights there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that most apps will have a value, because even if we think about the apps that are going to be relevant to accountants, they're going to be for pure accounting nature. But actually, it's about understanding all of the integrations. So if you take the QBO marketplace, there's probably 600 apps or so on that platform. And it creates app overwhelm, which is the first problem. It's like, wow, what do I choose? There's so many. But it's understanding, again, what are the things that you want to automate. It's really important that accountants get the opportunity to take control of this part of the process, because so much of the technology we're talking about here has an impact on the financial data, and accountants understand accounting data flows better than anybody else. And it's where there's a risk if clients end up going to IT service providers or something to get this kind of advice, because they don't understand the accounting data workflow that we do, and we need to make sure that we know how that data is coming through and how it's being dealt with, because otherwise we end up unpicking really big messes, and that's not great for the client, because they've got to pay us to unpick those messes. So it's just thinking about, again, the opportunity for accountants to look at this kind of wealth of technology that's out there, that is about making their life better, but also making their clients' lives better, and getting to the point where we understand where there's tools that are going to make a business more efficient, make it more profitable, operate more effectively, give the business owner more time to spend with their family, whatever it is. We have a role as accountants to really help our clients get the best out of technology, in the same way that we're trying to do with our own practices.
That's great advice from your hands-on experience. Eilis, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it definitely depends on your industry and like what the structure of your business looks like in terms of apps that, help more than just the accounting kind of team or department there. Two that kind of come to mind that aren't industry specific is Zapier. So we've been talking a lot about kind of the value of those integrations between QuickBooks Online and the rest of your app stack. And Zapier is a really cool tool if there isn't like a native integration that you can leverage, or like an open API. So you can use Zapier to kind of, connect various tools, as long as they're listed on Zapier's marketplace. So that's one I would recommend for sure. Can save you like, time in Excel and stuff like that, which is obviously huge. The other one too is Float. So this one's really helpful for kind of getting a handle on your cash flow. So if you are maybe, let's say, the owner or kind of on that leadership team at the small business, and you need to kind of see cash flow throughout the month, Float's really summarizes that data in a really easy to read way. So those would be my recommendations.
Thank you, Eilis. Alex, do you have any lingering thoughts?
Oh yeah, it's obviously ApprovalMax. But again, we need to see exact business and what other needs in terms of, let's say, the reporting side. I really enjoyed, just recently we had a webinar with Adam, and I really enjoyed looking at the way they're making forecasts. They have this, what is it called, roadmap or something, business roadmap feature, plus the scenarios, so you can see what is the worst case scenario, what is the great scenario, and it will show you what to expect in the future. Though, of course, making predictions, it's quite an unpleasant job. It typically doesn't work, but having something in mind, some kind of a understanding of where we should look at and what type of things we should be considering in our day-to-day work, it's actually quite nice feature to have. So for my recommendation, it would be, let's say, ApprovalMax and Fathom.
And certainly any payment tools that overlay on the top of that, anything that helps small businesses get paid faster, is hugely valuable. And as I said earlier on, it's a category of technology that's going to benefit every single client that an accountant's got. So we're talking about apps here that help accountants and the end business client, and getting money in the bank is like priority number one. So any of those kind of payment tool apps, whether it's credit card processing, direct debit processing, debt chasing, all of those kind of things are going to be hugely valuable.
Yeah, actually, to add on that, if we consider as ApprovalMax as your approval automation tool, then from my recommendation on the invoice processing tool, and then for the payment side, I would recommend Dext and Airwallex. First of all, because we have direct integration with both of these guys. And basically, once you have these tools in place, you can make all of your work end to end, from processing an invoice and all the way to the payment, just in ApprovalMax, because it's all seamlessly going from one system to another. And once the payment is actually processed, this transaction will be reconciled in Xero, or in QuickBooks Online. So it's quite great way for you to handle all of your bills transactions.
For sure. I feel like a big feature we see a lot of the small businesses like really craving these days is like online portals on our end. So that's like another way to really simplify kind of the payment process and, you know, make it really easy for your customers to pay you if you are kind of the SMB, you know, in that group there. So that's another recommendation to kind of have on your radar.
Thank you all for the recommendations. And now for the ultimate question, I would say, what is the perfect QuickBooks Online app stack? Will, I see you're eager to tackle this one, shall we?
Yeah, the spoiler. There's no such thing as a perfect app stack, because every business is going to be different. Every accounting firm is going to be different. But what we should do is build our own perfect app stacks for each individual client. So there is a perfect app stack. It's the one that we curate and implement and support our clients with, but it's going to be different for every person. So it comes back to, what are you trying to achieve? What's your business objectives? What's important to you? And building it on a case by case basis. And I'll talk in a moment about some of the ways that we can help firms do that, and for clients to build their own perfect app stacks.
Eilis, anything to add here?
Yeah, I think Will just really kind of covered it. I would say the only thing is, you know, looking for those best of breed like tools versus single suite. So, you know, rather than going with like everything from Microsoft because you're already using those tools, sometimes there are better solutions that kind of just specialize in one area. So I wouldn't discount those as you're evaluating your app stack.
That's good. Alex, do you have any thoughts to add? All right.
Well,
So
they've
yeah,
just nailed it.
I mean, if there isn't one, let's figure out how the audience can still get started on that. And let's go over business areas to automate first. Eilis, take it away.
Yeah, for sure. So at Method, we see a lot of our customers really finding a lot of value in automating elements of their customer experience, just to kind of deliver that, you know, quality, consistent standard. So that's a really handy area. Portals are a great way to do that. Same with your customer communication. Method helps out a ton with these things. And then also just your internal operations, right? So there's a lot of like manual work, like pulling reports and all that kind of stuff that you can really just get off your plate with a tool like Method. So those would be two areas to kind of to start.
Alex, any other areas?
Sure. It's like from my side, since I'm mainly working on accounts payable or accounts receivable automation, accounts payable automation is the king. And what we see from lots of our customers, prospects who are coming to our, let's say, weekly webinars and just arranging one-on-one demos, I'm constantly asking everyone, what is your main challenge? And what I'm seeing, about 80% of them have exactly the same answer. We are just tired of sending all of these multiple notifications and keep track whatever been approved versus not. It sometimes takes weeks to approve a single invoice because you're sending an email, it got lost somewhere in the mailbox, then you have all of these different replies. So it's really, really hard to keep track on whatever you need to pay and to make the actual payment on time. And that would be, I think, the critical point where you need to take a look on and really create some automation in place where you can delegate all of these different decision-making authorities across your team, making sure that everything's done on time.
Thank you for that, Alex. Will, as our resident bookkeeping and accounting expert, do you have any other advice?
No, I think we've covered a lot here. I think customer experience is absolutely critical, and it's about thinking about how do we create more effective touch points, and it's getting the balance right between using technology and automating that without losing kind of the essence of human interaction. But we should be absolutely focused on customer experience, but also measuring customer experience. So thinking about how we can automate things like Net Promoter Score to really give us some metrics and measurement about how well we're doing customer experience is absolutely key. And clearly I'm an accountant, so as Alex has alluded to, kind of getting those accounting data workflows automated is absolutely key, and looking at how we can use technology to deliver kind of real-time insight for clients, because that ultimately feeds customer experience. The more information we can deliver by using automated systems, using the technology that's there to collect data on an ongoing basis, means that we can do all of that stuff.
Very well put. Now, so that our audience actually has some tools and some resources that they can follow up on after this session, Eilis, why don't you tell us how Method can help them?
Yeah, for sure. So if you feel like you're a QuickBooks Online user who has kind of hit the limit of, the tool, and you're hoping to like extend it and not kind of move on to, different accounting software, something like an ERP, Method would be a really great alternative for you to check out. This is kind of like a frustration that a lot of our clients kind of find, and they come to Method to kind of extend the power of QuickBooks Online in terms of automating things like estimate creation, invoicing, reporting, all those customer touch points that we kind of alluded to before, and payment collection as well. So we do have an awesome automatic two-way sync with QuickBooks Online, so you can rest assured that everything's updating kind of as changes happen. And if you want to get started with a free trial, definitely recommend that. You can check us out at method.me.
Thank you, Eilis. Will, how about you tell us about App Advisory Plus?
Yeah, so depending on where the audience is based, we have an online platform directory listing for accounting connected apps, so apps that connect to Xero, QuickBooks Online, and many other general ledger tools. And as I said earlier, we built App Advisory Plus to stop firms having to spend hours and hours of research time. So whilst we do very similar to things like the app marketplace, QBO app marketplace, what we've done with our platform is we've built more layers of integration. So we've allowed users to build their own app stacks by selecting industry and business cases. So for example, somebody can say, I'm in hospitality and I'm looking for technology to run a restaurant and bar. And what it will do, it will surface categories of apps that are relevant. So certainly for the accountants and bookkeepers and things on the call, it gives you categories of technology to talk to your clients about that you may not have thought about, is step one. But what we then do is say, well, if you need it to integrate with QBO, but you also need to integrate to Gmail and ApprovalMax and Dex, then we will start to filter out apps based on those third-party integrations as well. So that point we made earlier about research, we're drilling those 20 apps down to possibly 3. Based on what you're looking to do, which then means you've only got to go and have conversations with 3 app vendors rather than 20 or 30 or whatever it might be. And it's a free to use platform, so anybody can go onto appadvisoryplus.com and sign up for a free account and get access to all of those tools.
Thank you so much, Will. Alex, how about you tell us how ApprovalMax can help the audience get started with automation?
I would love to. So ApprovalMax is an all-in-one tool for approving your financial documents. When it comes for integration with QuickBooks Online, we can provide you with multi-step and multi-level approval workflow for your purchase orders, for your bills, for your vendors, and for your expenses. But it's actually, there is much more behind the product than just these workflows. And by the way, let this word workflow not confuse you. I will explain you what it means in a second and how easy is that to create those things. But on top of that, on top of these workflows, there's actually some additional tools that can make your approval automation even more robust, allowing you to really keep track on what is your expenditure looks like, making sure that you're spending money only on the very specific things. Let's say bill to purchase order matching, which will allow your users to see if they've raised the purchase order some time ago and match those bills that you're now receiving against the POs and really see how much money you've spent. On top of that, there is, of course, customizable reports, search, and audit trail, which will allow you to keep track on whatever been approved versus not, who made the actual approval decision out of the whole workflow, what type of comments were made, what type of changes were made, so all kind of things. And of course, to make it even easier for our approvers, for our decision makers to approve their financial documents, we have a mobile app available for both iOS and Android. It's free of charge, of course. so you can do all of your work on the go. And as an example, by the way, I just came back from Australia, and one of our conferences, a guy came in onto the venue and he was like, guys, do you see what I'm doing? And he's showing ApprovalMax app. And he's like, while I was going from the subway into the venue, I was doing approvals. So now I'm completely done with my work for the rest of the day. I can now enjoy the conference. So it is that easy to approve your financial documents. So if we'll change it to the next slide, just to give a bit of a understanding of what is ApprovalMax in the first place. I've mentioned already that we are an approval automation tool for your financial documents. And I've mentioned already that we have these multi-step, multi-level approval workflows. But just to explain you what are these workflows in the first place, it is nothing more than just a sequence of approval steps where you will add as many users as needed. That is one of the benefits of using ApprovalMax, that you can add as many users and we won't be charging you for those users. And you can assign them to the very specific jobs. Let's say we have several people who is approving on the behalf of their departments. So you can assign those departments to these users, or maybe based on the amount thresholds, maybe based on the category. And once you've built this workflow, you can just simply sit back and relax. Once you receive an invoice, it will be automatically routed to the correct person. They will receive notification either by email or by push notification on their phone. They will make their approval decision. It will go to the next person in line. And once it is fully approved, it goes into QuickBooks Online alongside with the audit report, which shows you who made the decision, why they've made it, and when they've made it.
Thank you, Alex. So we don't have that much time. I would like to kick off the Q&A portion of the session. If you have any questions that haven't been answered so far by our panelists, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't see anything that has come through yet. But if not, now you know how to reach out to Will, Eilis, Alex, and ApprovalMax, App Advisory, and Method, respectively. So if you do have any lingering thoughts or questions after the session, feel free to reach out. I'm sure every panelist on the call would be more than happy to help. And if there isn't anything for now, let's wrap up the session. Thank you all for joining us, and a huge thank you to Will, Alex, and Eilis for joining me today. Shout out to Ryan, who is doing the slides behind the scenes. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Once again, reminding everyone, we'll send out the webinar recording very soon, so you can reference what we discussed today and even share it with others who might find it useful. And if there is no other questions in the meantime, I'm wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.